Sean, dude, we were just chatting. We don't get to do these very often. I think Mr. Mickler's making sure that we don't take over the podcast. So how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. Yeah, not bad. You guys have a good Easter.
Absolutely. It's our favorite. It's my wife and my youngest son's favorite holiday.
Even over Christmas.
Yeah, I was surprised too. He just loves it. He loves hunting for eggs. I'd like to say he loves Jesus and the resurrection, but the eggs supersede it as of now at 6 years old.
Yeah, it's for us. It's like Easter was fun. Okay, wait, before we go to bed, let's really talk about what today was supposed to be about. Maybe we need to step up our parenting game. So what tradition, what do you guys do for Easter?
Oh man, we always have like a special breakfast. It starts Friday. We do like a Good Friday Last Supper / Passover meal.
That's cool.
Yeah. And we get like a couple whole fish and all the types of food that they would have eaten back in Jesus's day.
Really? That's cool.
It's really cool. Yeah. We do it's really simple, basic, but it's always really good and the kids love it. And then we always have stuff like eggs hidden for when they wake up, all out in the yard, front yard, backyard, all around the house, all over the place, hidden Easter baskets. So they have to find those in the morning, then go find their eggs, and then we do a big Easter dinner.
Okay. So, that's cool.
It's fun. How about you guys?
Asia has continued this, but her mom started these, and it's, by the way, I was raised in a family where I don't know if we celebrated my birthday all the time. You know what I mean? And my wife's family's like the complete opposite. Like Tommy Turkey comes during Thanksgiving. I mean, it's like we've been married for a long time and I still miss holidays. I'm like, oh crap. Like I forgot I was supposed to get something, you know what I mean? So, but dude, our Easter's super fun. What do we do? So Saturday night, we'll have family over. Everyone will come prepared and we'll let the kids paint Easter eggs. And then once it's dark, there's two things that we do. So the first thing that we do is Asia's mother will create bags hidden across the yard, in the backyard and the front yard and all kinds of weird locations with a number on it. And then each family, we're as a team and we're on our deck, and you have to find bag one, grab an item out of bag one, bring it back. And then you can go find bag two, grab an item out of bag two, and etc. Right. Until you do 10 bags. But the funny part is the bag might have anything from canned corned beef to brownies. Right. And so you kind of want to find the bag quick, so you get the good groceries and not the crap stuff. Right. And so we do that as a family. And then after that, everyone contributes, all the adults anyway, contribute cash, and we'll put them all in these plastic eggs and hide them throughout the entire yard when it's dark. And then everyone has flashlights, and it's kind of the same rule. You have a basket, but you can't take your basket with you. So you have to find an egg, run back to the porch, put it in your basket, find another egg.
Oh,
so
it looks
people drove by, they'd be like, what the crap is happening? There's just bodies all over the place. People are tripping over each other. It's super fun. So we do that Saturday night, and then Sunday morning is just our family, Easter egg hunt, baskets in the house or hidden around the house. So it's fun. It's a good time. So I usually hustle and bust ass, mostly because I'm trying to get my money back. Right. So I put all this money in these eggs and I'm like, I want my money back. I threw down a couple hundred, you know what I mean? I got to get my cash back. So, but it's fun. It's fun. So
that's funny. So you guys are running out there with them too, huh?
Oh yeah. Oh, we're way too competitive to just let the kids do it. I'm just I literally try to beat everybody. So, I have no mercy. Yeah. Tripping people, or flashlight in their eye, trying to blind them. It gets a little brutal. So
That's right. You got to teach them young, no mercy.
yeah. The opposite of
Cobra
what Christ
Kai
taught.
method.
That's usually what we do. The opposite of what Christ would teach is our focus on Easter. Not a good sign. Anyhow, good times, man. It's in this spirit of Easter, though, what a powerful message. And we were talking to our kids last night that regardless of guys that are listening, your religious beliefs, the idea of Easter and the reason why, because here's the thing, I thought about it. How many people are making like Easter posts on Instagram? And let's be frank, if they're non-Christian guys, they might be annoyed, right? They're like, well, whatever. Do some critical thinking and realize, why is that such a big deal? And it's such a big deal is because it was such a profound message. This idea and this concept through his example that we'll all be resurrected, that there's actually life after death. That is pretty amazing message. Now, whether you believe it or not, that's a whole other story. But what an amazing thing to consider, that there's more to life than just living it and then dying. You know what I mean? And, and that's why Easter is such a big deal, because it's such a profound message. So
it is. And everybody feels that. I was listening to this saying, it was Joe Rogan and Mike Tyson. And, I was listening to them talk about their experiences with psychedelics, right? Which you wouldn't think has anything to do with this, but the biggest thing that stood out to them in talking about that was how they knew in doing that there was life after death, that there was
they came to that conclusion that life through getting high
continued beyond this world, right? It was pretty interesting listening to that. I'm like, wow, either this is something that we all inherently somehow know and understand,
or at least
and there's messages being sent to us about it in different ways.
Yeah. Or at least thrive to want to believe that, right? Because it's such a great message. Yeah.
Yep.
So happy Easter to all you guys. All right. Should we get in some questions? I'm limited on time, so I guess I shouldn't have bantered as much as I did. So we're going to field questions from the Iron Council. To learn more about our exclusive brotherhood, the Iron Council, you can go to orderofman.com/Iron Council. And when you go there, you will not be able to sign up. We actually have openings where we open it up right before a new quarter. It is currently closed. So you're going to have to wait until next quarter if you're interested. However, stay connected to us, so then that way you can know when that opens up. There's many ways to do that, whether it's connecting with Ryan on Instagram and Twitter at Ryan Mickler, or going to orderman.com/Iron Council and signing up for the newsletter and etc. So make sure to stay connected to us so you know the latest and the greatest around the Iron Council. All right, our first question, Brock Epler. I am a very social person, and sometimes it gets the better of me. I find that when I'm around people, I like the conversation. I love the conversation is flowing well. I want to stay and keep engaging. Meanwhile, my to-dos are getting put off. I'm thinking of setting up a timer on my watch to prevent me from staying too long, but I was curious to know there are other strategies you use or have. Thank you. This is a really good question. My wife's this way drastically, and I'm always pissed off. So maybe I'll have her listen to the podcast. But first, I have to tell her that there is even a podcast. But I'll tell her. Anyhow, go ahead. What do you think?
This is a hard one for me because I'm not a social person. I'm kind of a extroverted introvert.
Yeah.
Where you get me in the right seat, you get me on a stage in front of 30,000 people and I have no problem. And I can talk forever and whatever. Stuff like this, same thing. You get me in a social setting and I tend to avoid talking to people. But once I start, I go, but I'm not I just don't tend to get into super long conversation with a lot of people. And so for me, I'm like you, I'm kind of like, okay, let's get to the point. Let's cut it short. Let's figure out what our outcome is, I guess you could say, and get to that. So I think if you want a strategy, the only thing I could think of is going into the conversations, enter with an outcome so that you're not wasting time. So if time's your issue and you find yourself losing a half hour, an hour in your day or whatever it is because you're just schmoozing,
Yeah.
and I would say figure out your outcomes for each day. That's where the battle planner would be effective, I think, is in knowing what you need to achieve that day, having it in front of you. And then if you know you're going to go into one of those conversations that you think can trap you, and go in with that outcome of,
Yeah.
hey, I have to get these other things done. And maybe even preface the conversation with, hey, I have to get this done, but I wanted to know from you this, this, and this, and you
Totally.
get to it. So
Yeah.
that's the only thing I could maybe think of.
Couple thoughts. And I know a couple people like this in my life, not just my wife, but I have some friends that, once you're hanging out, you just go, you keep going. Right. And I think, Brock, get present to the impact of you staying too long. Right. The reality of it is, in some cases, you're out of integrity. Right. It's like, hey, I'm going to be late now for this other thing. That's not good. Like, I don't care how great the conversation is. If you're now showing up late to another commitment, that's a problem. Right. The other thing is, sometimes, like, those individuals in my life that I love, that talk a lot and I really want to hang out with them. Sometimes, and this may sound mean, sometimes I'm hesitant to go hang out with them because I'm going to get sucked into a conversation and I don't have enough time. And I'm now going to get like pressured, might get pressured into talking later. It's ineffective and I'm not efficient enough. So maybe just getting present to the cost. There's a cost for all things, even if your deeds are the best deeds on the planet. If you are a highly social person, the benefits are what? People feel valued by you. They know you're genuine, you care. Yeah. And the consequences, what? Right? What's the cost? Well, my kids aren't going to get to bed in time. They're going to stay up too late. They're going to be groggy in the morning. Like, get present to the cost. And maybe that might help you go, hey, it's not worth it, right? It's not worth sticking around always. And what's the cost of me always being too overly social with you, Sean? And every single time we hang out, you're always late coming home, or you're always late getting to your next meeting because I can't shut my mouth, right? And I keep talking and I want to talk all day. So, other than that, I think maybe just intentionality and keep to your schedule, right? If your plan was to be at a party for 3 hours, then leave at 3 hours. Why? Because you said you would. And you need to. And I think you can do a proper exit without offending people, right? It's like, dude, thank you so much. The conversation's been awesome, Sean. It's always great to catch up. Unfortunately, I got a commitment. I got to run, man, but it was great seeing you. Let's do it again. It's better to see it again and have those conversations more often, and you honor your commitments than not. And by the way, we even talk about this in the Iron Council. This is one of the tips I give to battle team leaders, is in your calls on time. Why? Because if you drudge through, the next time I have a call, it's like, oh, it's going to probably run late. And then I have this other commitment. And so I'm hesitant to get on the call because you're not respecting my time either. And so just kind of keep that in mind. Anything else, Sean, that come to mind?
Yeah, it stood out when you said that maybe it's mean. I don't think it's mean. I think it's just about effectiveness,
It's understandable.
and what serves you and what you're trying to do, whether it's business and family, your relationships. And if you know what you want, there's always going to be less time to just schmooze, because you're going to be on task with something. And a lot of those conversations, not only are they not serving you, but they're not serving the person that you're with. So it's all, I think, a matter of perspective. For me, I know if I get into a half-hour long conversation with somebody that's just shooting the breeze, that doesn't serve either one of us. It's taking time away from both of us in being effective in the things that are important, which for me is my faith, my family, my business, the other things that are serving the people that are most important to me. And by the way, that could include family, because I know I've had family members and stuff get kind of upset with me, I guess you could say, because I was short with them, or or I didn't
Efficient.
hold into conversation with them. But at the end of the day, like, you know, whether it's my cousin or my aunt or someone like that, if they're not going to be paying my bills at the end of the day, and there's stuff I needed to get done for work or in my business or whatever it is, that supersedes that conversation. So, you know, again, it's a matter of figuring out if you're wasting time, how much time, and the, like you said, the cost, I think, is important to know.
Okay. Ian Roth, he had a question around Ryan, first lessons learned writing his first book. Ian, we're going to punt your question maybe so you can get Ryan's particular feedback next time. Sam Broadway, I just got engaged yesterday. Gentlemen, tell us your proposal stories. You got a good one?
Mine was interesting because it went full circle. I had this elaborate plan to take my wife, because she's from Montana. Okay. And she grew up on WIC and food stamps and in a trailer in northeastern Montana. Like most people think of Montana, they think of either like Glacier National Park or Yellowstone and how it's beautiful.
Yeah, not Billings and out in the middle of nowhere. Yeah.
Yeah, northeast corner, it's like, it looks like Mad Max. There's nothing, and there's no people, there's no anything. It's awful. And so she grew up out there broke. And so she also grew up eating venison, mostly whatever her dad could get, right? Whatever they could end up with food wise, they would eat. And so she kind of had these memories attached to venison and stuff like that. So I'm like, man, I need to find a place that has some wild game. Found one in Malibu, as we live out, you know, near Malibu, and it's a high-end, real nice place. So that's where we're going to go to dinner, and I was going to do it. But before that, we went to Malibu Pier, and I was going to take her out there and kind of fool her where she thought I was going to propose. And that's exactly what happened. We go out, we go to the end of the pier. It's during sunset. It was like perfect setting, perfect place to propose. And I don't do it.
Yeah.
And you could see her kind of confused as we left. And then we go to this place, which is supposed to be this big high-end restaurant. I'd never been there before this. And we walk in, and this is during this time, this is 23 years ago. I was not hunting back then. I wasn't doing anything like that, and didn't really understand it even. And we walk into this place, and there's like, you know, there's animals all over the place, you know, all these stuffed animals,
like mounts and stuff. Okay.
Everywhere. Right. And we go in, and they take us upstairs. They sit us at this chair where literally there's a stuffed badger, like right next to the table, like, you know, like in that position, like it's going to pounce. There's a stuffed badger. There's, you know, we're surrounded by like 3, you know, mounts up above us on the wall. Is like a bighorn sheep and a white tail and I forget what else, like a bison or something, right? Like, and so she's thinking, really, like, there's no way he's going to propose in this place. This is weird, right? That he took me here. And totally. And then I told her, you know, hey, they've got wild game. That's why I took you here and whatever else. I ended up proposing there, but it was so funny because this is before cell phones had your cameras and all that stuff, right? So I had a physical camera, and I told the waiter, hey, when you see me get down on a knee, just start snapping pictures. And
on the 35 millimeter.
Right. And so he does that, and we get the pictures back, and literally it's like me on a knee with this, you know, like trying to show the ring, but all you could focus on is this badger, this like stuffed badger that looks like it's about to pounce on me while I'm proposing to her.
It's hilarious. That's funny. That's the problem with anything eventful happening when we were younger, is like, there's no photographer to like capture the moment. And let's be honest, not capture the moment, make the moment seem way better than it actually was. It's usually like kind of shitty, you know, when we look at like old photos and stuff that were taken. So mine, so Age and I, when we're dating, we ran, there's these races called Ragnar relays.
Yeah.
And it actually started in Utah. It's called the Wasatch Back. And what it was is it's a 12-man race. and at the time, I think it was like 190 miles nonstop relay. So, and
So
it's
it's one of those
super
easy ones.
yeah. And it's super gnarly because it's nonstop, right? And so your first leg is like 6 miles, and then you support your runner. So you support your team. So you're in a van, and then you're like stopping 2 miles ahead, giving them water. And so more or less you don't sleep. So it's like 2 days of sleeping, no sleeping and running and like yelling and, and it's nonstop. And so I told the team that we're running with, which was actually my coworkers from I Am Flash. But I told them like, hey, I'm going to propose at the finish line. And so as we ran into the finish line, we're all running down, and then the team all kind of, I like sprinted ahead a little bit. And then I dropped and then I faced her, and I knelt right in front of the finish line and then proposed, which was great. Like, it was kind of fun. The joke is that I needed to like exhaust her. she needed
out.
sleep deprivation to say yes. The fun part is like the next day we got flooded with like calls from like family members and friends, like, oh, congratulations. And we're like, how do you guys know? And they're like, oh, it's on the front page of the newspaper of the sports section.
Oh,
So
wow.
on the front page of the sports section is me kneeling, proposing, which is super cool.
Best.
Yeah. Like, is the journalist did like a whole write up about us and totally like trumped the entire thing. And it was kind of funny because like he covered the event, covered us, and then like the last 2 sentences was, and Weber State University took first and blah, blah, blah. And, and it was like, it was like a complete afterthought. I thought, oh, poor guys, but it was cool. And so now I have all these newspaper clippings, you know what I mean, from the event. So it worked out really well.
You couldn't ask for something better.
Yeah, it worked out really well. Yeah, yeah, unattended. Well, and I missed all kinds of other stuff. So we have a his, hers, and ours. And so I had my 2 boys and her boy on the side, like as you come into the finish line, there's people cheering on the sides, and they had poster boards up, and the poster board said, "Will you marry my dad?" as they're holding up. So we're running by them, and then as she came to the last board, then that's when I proposed. So wow. So we incorporated the kids, added a little bit of like, if you say no, the poor kids,
no pressure.
Yeah. Yeah. No pressure. All right. Jarrett, Storrell. Sorry, Jarrett. What is your answer when someone says this movement, Order Man, is all about toxic masculinity and nothing about family? Or the comment, just a good old boys club? I believe Order Man is an excellent resource to building society to a proper direction. So has this come up for you, Sean?
It has. And when I got into the IC, I ended up starting a men's group in my business. And when I introduced that to the business, we got a little bit of pushback at first from some of the women and some of the more liberal women, I guess you could say, kind of like, oh, well, what are you starting this men's group and whatever else? And
that's exclusive to us. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the key is once you have the conversation of what it actually is, then everything's fine. But I also think it's important to go at it. And I'm like that anyways. I like to go to issues straight at them instead of whether it's passive aggressiveness or just avoiding it altogether, which is what most people do, or ignore it like, oh, I don't need to prove myself to them. I think it's important to go to those straight at them and have the conversation. And once you do, then it's been fine because I was able to explain like, look, we need that. And this was right before COVID. When I started, I think I started in the IC in October, November of, 19? So, and got this started right before that. And my answer to them was, well, this is going to help people be better husbands, better fathers, better, more supportive of the women in their lives, better leaders, better communicators. And if you call that toxic, then I don't know what to tell you. But my goal is to help them go at issues that are, in my opinion, going to take away the toxic part of the masculinity, but we're going to increase their masculinity and help them improve in being prepared in their homes and in their households, being more effective in what they're doing, whether it's their business, their families, even in their communities, especially in their communities. And after those conversations, then they felt really comfortable, because then it felt supportive of women and not exclusive of them, which is what we are. And so that I think the conversation is the important part, and less the initial reaction of, kind of like that Ryan talks about a lot, the 0 F's mentality. Well, whatever, they can think what they
red
want.
pill movement.
That's on them. I don't think it is on them. I think that's actually one of the best things that can happen, is people bring that up so you could have the conversation.
Totally. If you said that to me, I'd be like, have you listened to the podcast? Like, this is the first thing I'd like, have you listened to anything? Because that's obviously not what we're doing. Now, let's be frank. I say that to you, you're just going to take that as an attack, right? So I would be genuine, if hypothetically, if you came to me and said, hey, what's this order of man stuff? Is it just really about toxic masculinity or what? I would say, what's your definition of toxic masculinity?
Yeah.
And then once you describe it, then we all know that it's not what we're doing. You're like, oh, no, that's not the objective, right? The objective is to help men rise up to become better versions of themselves, whether it's as fathers or within their businesses, as community members and husbands. That's all that we're doing. So,
Ryan posted in the last couple of days, he posted a thing. It was an old post of, I think he was jogging or something. And he was talking about how men need to be more prepared in their homes. They need to get their finances in order. They need to be physically more prepared. They need to improve their communication efforts. And he went through this list of things that we should be doing as men to be better. And this is pre-COVID. And then he said, here's some of the things that people said back then, right? And then what's come true, and basically like all of the stuff has come true that he had said, and how important it was that we were prepared in those things. And so you look at that, and it's for me, I'm so grateful and blessed to be in the IC, to pay attention to Order of Man, to be introduced to it, to read Ryan's book, to be able to have these resources, to not only to help me get better in those things the last few years, but to be able to help others do it as well, totally. Through the IC, through even doing this, through the men's group that I've started. And I know that there's other guys in the IC that have started their own men's group in their families. And just
churches,
the trickle through effect it's life-changing, and it's needed now more than ever. But when you break down what we're teaching and what we're keeping each other on point with, you couldn't look at it and use the word toxic, in my opinion.
Yeah, no. And Jared, what you're looking for is maybe evidence of why this movement is important, man, there's so many different books. I mean, the one that I reference probably way too many times on this podcast already is The Boy Crisis. Read that book. This is a problem. Like, society has a problem. Or grab any statistics on the chances, fatherless homes. Just address that issue. And you can grab stat after stat of the drawbacks and the issues associated with fatherless homes. So pick your poison. There's plenty of evidence that men need to rise up and they need to do a better job. We need to do a better job. And so if you're looking for evidence around that, check out, I think Dr. Farrell's book, The Boy Crisis. And there's a range of other books that really support this movement. So
it'd be interesting to see, as you say that, to get a stat from guys in the IC. It'd be easier through the IC than it would, I think, in the Facebook group or any of that. But just to get a stat of how many men didn't have an active male role model or father in their home growing up, because it seems pretty apparent for most of the guys when that issue gets brought up that most of the guys didn't have that father figure around. They want to change that. So, I mean, shoot, just that alone is worth its weight in gold, in my opinion.
Yeah, totally. Scott Henderson, in the past, I used to get upset when people would point out flaws and act like they're joking. I now smile and move on. I feel I have moved forward graciously, but those people still keep saying things like, oh, how emotional, Hindo. I feel I'm not emotional anymore, but I can't live it down. How do you handle people like this?
You choke them out.
He's like, hey, what's train? I'll show you my emotions.
You wear it on your sleeve. No, you just take it, because it's going, that's your reputation. And until you've built a new reputation, which takes time, they're going to give you hard. And by the way, some people aren't going to let it go. I will see guys from high school occasionally, or even middle school, who still call me an old nickname. One of my nicknames in high school was Spicoli. And so it's like, I'll still see people that call me that. But people who knew me post high school or through my business now, or who I am now, they can't even imagine me as that guy. And so some things are just going to stick with you, and you have to let it not bother you. Now it's hard, but you have to understand that no matter how good your reputation, I tell this to people when they get into business with me, because we're in a business where you're marketing yourself, and especially it's kind of like you get into real estate, right? And you want everybody to know you're in real estate. Well, just because they know you have a real estate license now doesn't mean that they're going to list their house with you, because maybe they remember the one time you fell off that bar stool in that Mexican restaurant like 10 years ago, and they remember that guy. And because of that, they're not going to list their house with you. Well, you can't take that personally. You just have to become the real estate guru. And that might take you 5 years, 10 years, maybe even 20 before you build that credibility and that reputation with them. But it's something you just have to take as part of human nature.
Yeah. And you being emotional will just perpetuate it. So you being bothered by it is just perpetuating it. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think you just maybe just be gracious in regards to how you have been and say, oh yeah, check. Yeah. I guess that would look like the old me, you know, and just have the conversation, you know what I mean? And move on. So, yeah, good point. All right. Johnny Loretti, where does a man draw the line between sharing relevant personal mental health struggles and oversharing? There's a push for men to share more, but where is the point where you lose leadership credibility with your guys if you're in a leadership position? Question.
But see, there is a line between vulnerability, Ryan's favorite word, and weakness, I guess you could say. And so if I'm being honest, you shouldn't be sharing those things. It's one thing saying, hey, look, I know how you feel. I've felt like, I don't know if you're familiar with feel, felt, found. I know how you feel. I felt that way. I had this similar situation. Here's what I found. That's something you definitely want to do. And if you could call that vulnerability, that's just telling your story and using your experiences. I think that's fine. But honestly, you shouldn't be bringing personal issues, especially emotional issues, down line, for lack of a better word. So if you're in a leadership role, you bring issues like that only up to, if you're in a corporate setting, you bring it up to your supervisor, to your manager, whoever it is, you go up with those things only. If you're an entrepreneur, you need to find a mentor or somebody that you can bring those things to, and you go up with that. but you never bring that stuff downward to whether it's your subordinates or people on your team or that you're leading, because I think it does impede on your leadership credibility. Now, some guys might disagree with me on that. They'd say you need to be vulnerable and all that stuff, but I'm not saying you don't share some of those things, but you do it only when you're trying to help them through a situation so that you have credibility in going through that experience before. Your actual issues, whether they're emotional, whether they're relationship issues, just personal things that are going on in your life, you need to have a mentor or a coach or a manager, somebody you can go up with those things with. If it's not, maybe it's someone at church, maybe it's your leader or pastor at church, maybe it's even just someone in your community that is good at those things, or that's someone more like you want to be yourself that you go to and you talk to about those things. But I don't think you should be doing it with people that you're trying to lead.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that what I'm hearing, Sean, is just ask yourself or continually evaluate, is this serving them? Right. If you being humble and having some authenticity around a struggle, because by sharing that, you're helping your team be able to relay of how that might be applied to them, that's serving them. But if I'm pissed off about another leader in the org and I'm being emotional about it and I'm bitching to my team about a breakdown of communication, how does that serve them? No, they're going to latch on and end up having a problem with that person because you have a problem with that person. It doesn't serve them. It's going to actually hinder them and hurt them. And so I would just constantly be evaluating, does this serve the team? Does this serve the mission? And does it benefit? And if it does, share. If it doesn't, don't share, or figure your shit out and then use it as an example of, hey, I had this issue. This is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to move beyond it. And now it's a good learning experience. But if you're still learning, you're in the process of figuring your shit out, don't just rant your emotions and run off, because let's be frank, that doesn't serve anybody, to be honest, because you're still working it out. And unfortunately, a lot of cases when we share emotionally like that without conclusion, I think people latch onto it and they go, oh yeah. And they want to back you up, because I'm getting a little sidetracked here, but this is what we do, by the way, right? When we have a problem with something, we can take ownership and end up finding a resolve. If you don't take ownership, you usually have to blame someone or something of why it occurred. And usually your desire to want to share it with someone, Sean, I want to share it with you. Why? Because I want to build my confidence and my buy-in in regards to why I'm a victim.
Yeah. Or you want to validate it from,
I'm validating
that person to validate you. Yeah,
exactly. And most people will validate. Why? Because it's easier to validate you versus telling you like you're being a little bitch and to man up. So you will get validated and then you'll feel better temporarily about the problem because you got validated. Well, that's great for me emotionally, but now Sean's on this train of problem that I had. And he's going to do what now? Is he going to support me on taking ownership and rising above? No, he's going to perpetuate what he validated me about, being a victim or blaming someone else and not taking ownership. So does it serve Sean? No. Does it serve me? No. So just be mindful of how it's going to serve individuals. And if it's really serving yourself, when we're seeking validation, it's not benefiting even us. It's a temporary feel good, but it's really not the resolution for most things.
Yeah. But I do think it's important to talk about it. I
agree.
You definitely don't want to hold it in, but if you don't have that person in your circle now that you can go up to, you need to find them. And sometimes that might be a therapist, even just get a third party that you can sit with and deal with those issues with. A lot of people don't want to do that because it makes them feel like they're broken, but it's absolutely necessary.
To your point, if I'm feeling like a victim, you're saying, hey, find someone to talk about it, talk with someone that is going to tell you or going to serve you in a beneficial way. But you're saying, but you need to express it and work through it. Don't just, brush it under the mat or whatever. Yeah.
And one more quick thing, that I have kind of this rule of thumb that when I'm going through it, I don't talk about it, but when I've overcome it, than I do, because there's strength in that story. And when I'm going through it, I remind myself, this is going to be a great story someday. But you don't tell it while you're going through it. You tell the story of overcoming that thing. And there's way more power in that.
Yeah. And I don't think that's an ego thing, by the way, Sean. I think that is you being mindful of what's going to serve people. Another thing that crossed my mind that I think is just an important thing to know, because we have this conversation with battle team leaders in the IC often, is why, or what's the objective? What are you trying to accomplish as a leader? And it is to serve your team and help them become better, period. And by the way, this is something you have to fight for constantly. It's like integrity. You never just don't have it. You know, I can't count many times where I have my head on straight. Why am I here? What's the purpose? What's the primary objective? And then before you know it, if I'm not careful, my ego's in. Oh, it's about looking good. I want the approval of the team. And I'm practicing from a space of trying to look good. Oh, shit, that's not why I'm here. Right. And I have to put that in check and remember, like, hey, I'm here to serve the team. If my team's struggling with having authentic sharing and being humble with each other, what should I probably do? Be humble and probably authentic, lead from the front, show them how that's done, right? Open it up. And so if you're looking for things from your team that they're not doing, you probably have to go first. And so look for those opportunities. At least that's one trigger that's, red flag, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Brandon McKiff, as I work to transition into my own business as a fitness trainer, as well as my wife doing her own home nursing care, she's a BSN. Is there any advice for two people simultaneously starting their dream jobs and also maintaining our relationship with both ourselves and our 4 kids? And by the way, we just transitioned from the Iron Council. These are Facebook questions. To join us on Facebook, go to facebook.com/group/orderman. Sean, go.
Yeah. I mean, that question is, and this is not a shameless question, but it kind of is. But the book that my wife just wrote, it's called Happy and Strong. That's exactly what it's about. And I think there's so many things we could spend hours talking about how to do that. But the most important is, number one, be on the same page with what you guys are trying to achieve together, and be supportive of what each of you needs. Because with 2 different businesses, and this is regardless, it happens if you're starting the same business or separate businesses together. But I think it's even more important when you're starting separate businesses, because you're going to have different challenges, and do what you can to help each other through those challenges. But knowing where you're headed is the most important part. And with 2 separate ones, I think the difficulty is going to be in thinking that one's more important than the other. Yeah. And so, make sure you're in constant communication about where you're headed with each. And then next is figure out your scheduling. So for us, communication's the biggest thing. We kind of have monthly goals, monthly things we're trying to achieve. We have weekly family meetings. It sounds like they have kids. And so every single week we're sitting with our kids. Like even last night, we said, during our Easter dinner, we kind of started our family night and said, hey, this is a big week. We have a lot going on. I'm taking my boys out into the desert. We're going dirt biking. My wife's taking my daughter out to Tennessee, where we're going to be moving. She's also stopping in Austin and doing a podcast with someone and actually with Justin Wren, so that'll be fun. And so they have a big weekend. We have all this stuff coming up. And so leading up to that, plus we're moving in June. So it was like having the conversation with the kids of, hey, this is going on this week, and making sure that we were very clear that on certain days, my kids knew I was doing this morning. So, and they knew my laptop broke down. So my normal quiet part of the house, I'm not in, and I'm in my art room now. That this is where the kids generally break into right when they wake up in the morning. And so we had to have that conversation, making sure they were clear that they weren't going to break into this room. They knew what was happening. Right. And so that communication of us being on the same page, we know on a normal week, all of the kids' sports activities, all of the things we have to do in church, things that we're doing in our callings there in our church, things that we have to do in business, and all of that's scheduled before we even start the week. So every one of us knows our non-negotiables. So, this is typically a business question. So why am I talking about the family? Because you're not going to get the stuff done in your business as effectively if you don't first have those non-negotiables in. And it's because you asked about balance, is if I know before I start the week, like my birthday's on Thursday. And so, but I'm leaving with my boys on Thursday and my wife's getting on a plane. So we're not going out Thursday night. So we're going to do that Wednesday. So we already have that in. That's a non-negotiable. There's already been like 4 other meetings that people have tried to get my wife and I to do, and we're not going to do that, right? Like it's scheduled in. This is what we're doing as a family. That's non-negotiable. We're not going to change it for anything. When it's my kids' games and those things, that stuff's scheduled in, right? There's things they want to do that they ask us about in our family night. So that stuff's in the schedule, and we won't move things as they come up before we even start. So that's the only way you're going to achieve the balance. And like you mentioned earlier, whether it's being on time or going, into those things, it's even worse than being late is rescheduling stuff like that. And so when we have it and we committed years ago not to reschedule those things, you start with that. And then it's okay, what's the next most important things? And you have that in your battle planner or however you do it. Another reason to get a battle planner and to be on it every day, knowing what you need to do each day for both of you. And then at the end of the day, having your after action review, going through that together. What went well today? What didn't? What can we improve on? How can we help each other? Where's the space that we can do that in each day? It's just the communication needs to go, on red alert, basically, especially as you're starting. And that's for most people going to be hard at first. But you do it consistently for at least the next 90 days and build that into a habit. And hopefully that's just a part of what you do. But I don't think you have a chance without starting it that way with just super aggressive communication.
Yeah. And I think that communication is just laying out expectations, even the ones that just might seem no brainers. It's like, honey, what are the key ways that I can help support you in your business? Because us guys, we'll have a tendency, probably in most guys will not ask, right? Like, I just need time. Let me have my time and I'll get shit done. My wife, on the other hand, she expects me to support her, and support looks like me doing this and me doing that and me taking an active role in her business versus her taking an active role in mine. Right. So I just need my time. Hers is like, well, you never help me, implement my billing so it's better. And you know what I mean? Help me on the technology front and et cetera. It's like, so have the conversation. What does you supporting her look like? And then the last thing that I just point out is just keep your priorities straight. Your time together, your guys' date night, time with your kids, honor your commitments and your priorities. One of the best things I ever did is convince my wife to actually like get connected to my work email and calendaring. So she sends me meeting invites just like I get meeting invites from clients. It's no different. And so those stay tightly integrated. I know when we fly out this Wednesday to go to Arizona, you know what I mean? We're on the same page in regards to our schedules. So, good stuff.
I wrote down, as you said, that taking an active role in her business, and that's a rare thing. There's so many couples, especially, think that supporting your partner is, oh, go ahead, go do it, honey. That's your thing. Go get them. That's not support. That's I don't even know what you call that.
It's compliant.
Yeah. And so real support is taking an active role in it. And not enough people do that. The fact that you have, and there's also too many people in general, but I think especially men, that say, well, she doesn't need to know my calendar, or I don't want her to know all of the stuff that's going on in business. I think that's a problem. Like if you have a problem with sharing your calendar because you can't be quote unquote your own man, which is what I hear from a lot of guys. They don't want to share their calendar, their schedule. I'm my own man. I don't have to answer to, my wife or anybody. I think that's an issue. I think that it's important that the more open you can be with that. I actually think there's a lot more freedom in that than totally. It's kind of, who says that? I think it's Jocko, right? There's freedom and discipline. I think that's one of the discipline things that we need in the sharing of our schedule is to have the freedom that we want.
Yeah. John Stambaugh. I have managed people in my career for the past 20 years. Currently, I'm finding a larger lack of ownership in some of our up and coming team members. I have tried to coach around this and offer more learning materials to pull from. This mentality of theirs is standing in their way of both professionally and personally. I understand you can't force people to change. The question is, are there other ways to introduce the idea? These folks want to succeed, but are standing in their own way.
What was the beginning of that question? I missed.
He has managed people, and this up and coming team members are lacking ownership, and he's tried to coach them with materials, and he's looking for strategy around helping them take on some ownership in their jobs.
Give them a reason to. It's especially early on. That's always going to be an issue with people new coming onto a team. They have no buy-in yet. And so with no buy-in, you can't expect them to take ownership. And sometimes it's just a matter of figuring that out. Even when you join a cause, like you could want to join a nonprofit because you want to help whatever, right? Like fight for the forgotten. I want to help against bullying. And so I want to join this nonprofit and help them out. But then you get there and it's like, okay, what do I do to help with this cause? A lot of times they just don't know. So they need that buy-in, or sometimes they get in because maybe they're trying to make money. I don't know, specifically what he's talking about as far as the team, but they need something bigger than just the task, just even if it's money, or whatever it is. You have to help them find out what that buy-in is going to be. Kind of like the Simon Sinek, know your why. Help them get to that point. And that's going to take, everybody's different. Some people they can get it in a week or two. Some people, it's going to take them a month or two. Some maybe a year or two, but it's our job as leaders to help them get bought in.
Totally, man. It's so funny. I was just having this conversation this morning with our leadership team about the importance of getting buy-in and helping our employees be fully committed to their jobs. And to your point, does that look like? It looks like extreme ownership. Like and think about it, guys, like when you're fully committed to something, right? And you're showing up in a really powerful way, these are the details. I'm actually pulling up my slide deck from this morning, right? So fully committed, you take ownership and are accountable for the desired results. You're willing to do what it takes to succeed, and you take initiative. You operate from personal values and have organizational alignment. You have strong commitment to the company, the work group, and the actual role, and you operate with high energy, passion, and enthusiasm. That's what happens when you're fully bought in and committed, AKA when you have extreme ownership. So back to your point, Sean, how do you take a team member from, hey, this is just a 9 to 5, Sean, how do you get that guy to actually be fully committed to their jobs? You focus on the intrinsic motivators. Why do people want to care? Ideas. Autonomy. They want it to be their baby. They want some autonomy. They don't want to be micromanaged, right? Mastery, an opportunity to become the master, to be amazing at something. How are you allowing that to be available to them? Give them purpose and meaning. Back to Simon Sinek, your why, right? Is there a bigger meaning and purpose around their job? One thing that I would like use as a measuring stick there is, are they doing it in a way that moves, touches, and inspires them? If you're not moved, touched, and inspired, you got to go deeper, right? Whether that's your vision or your why or whatever, right?
And
they might be, okay, go ahead.
I was going to say, and they have to be moved, touched, and inspired by you. So they have to see that in you. Also, you can't expect them to do it if they don't not just see it in you, but feel it in you.
Totally. Totally. The other things, they might have drive. They want to achieve greatness, right? Okay. Is what their role and their job within the organization aligned to allow them to achieve greatness? Do they have a sense of belonging? And then as well as status and respect from others, right? And so these are the things, like you can hop online, do a search for intrinsic motivators, figure out what makes them tick. If an employee, here's my just opinion, if an employee is here because it's their 9 to 5 and we paid more than the other company, I don't want them working here. Seriously, I don't want them. If you're here because we offered more, that's not good enough.
No,
it has to be greater than that. And the reason why is because we want people that are fulfilled, that love their jobs. And when the going gets tough and you're fully committed, what do? You push through. You find a way when you're bought in. But if you have an employee that's just compliant, like, oh, well, I'll do it because Sean asked me to. The minute I reach struggle, I'm checked out.
Yeah,
I'm going to go, oh yeah, it's not my job, right? You're going to get that kind of bullshit. You know, it's not my responsibility. It's not my blah, blah, because they're not bought into what you're doing. So, and to your point, Sean, they're not going to be unless you are too.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. There's a rant. All right. We're up on time. So my apologies, guys. We're giving you almost like exactly an hour because I have a hard stop meeting that I kind of got too close overbooked. So a couple of things as call to actions. Connect with Mr. Mickler on Instagram and Twitter at Ryan Mickler. You can get your latest swag and everything at store.orderofman.com. To stay connected and find or to be notified the next time we have an opening for the Iron Council, go to orderofman.com/Iron Council. And of course, you can join us on the Facebook group. That's facebook.com/group/Order of Man. Sean, anything else?
Did Ryan want you to mention the Man Uncaged event?
Yeah, you know what? That's a really good point. So there's a Man Uncaged event. It's an in-person event, 100 spots up in the Sacramento area. That is May 7th. May 7th. Bedros, Jack Donovan, Tanner, Ryan Mickler, Matt. Who else? See, now I'm gonna forget someone, and then I'm gonna look bad. Shit.
Jack
Donovan. No, I mentioned Jack.
Oh. It's going to be good. There's 99 spots, by the way, because I signed up. I'll be flying up there real quick.
Yeah. Well, and there's, if I remember correctly, my conversation with Ryan, there's already more than half sold out. So the other individual is Stephen Mansfield. He's presenting as well as John Lovell from the Warrior Poet Society. So awesome event. Go to manuncaged.com to learn more, to sign up. It's going to go by quick, and it's already starting to become a little controversial. I think the event was up a day and a half before Stripe dropped payment services for the event because the event is not in line with their social guidelines.
Oh, geez.
Because having an all men's event, that's toxic by nature. It's crazy, man. It's just craziness. So
that means it's going to be even better.
Hell yeah. Yeah, totally. I'm like, this is a good sign. If people are trying to cancel you nowadays, that's a good sign. Yeah. So embrace it. And join manuncaged.com to sign up and register for that event. Thank you guys. Support us, spread the word. And until Friday for Friday Field Notes, take action and become the men you were meant to be.